Oh, welcome. This is a Velma video tutorial series, and this is the intro video. We'll just do some basic little explanation of what to expect and how this workflow will go. I've done this in a few different forms, but this one I'm hoping to be the most informative and formal, I suppose. And so the way that this is going to go is that I have this document that's currently a live document. It's going to be sort of developing as I work through the video series. And the idea here is that I'm going to be setting up a watershed, and that the video numbering series will follow this bulleting series, which so far I just have 1 and 2. Actually, I already recorded a video and then realized that it was already getting too long for that one video. So here we're just talking about intro and data sources, and the data sources are going to be for H.J. Andrews Watershed 1. So I'm going to be preparing that watershed because I have a couple different reasons for needing it developed in a nice, concise little package. And so it's a perfect opportunity. Plus, H.J. Andrews data, it's a location. Watershed is a long-term ecological research station, and so they have a lot of wonderful, great data, and it's an ideal location for setting up Velma simulations regarding climate data, and they have observed runoff and some chemistry data and lots of different things to play with in Velma. Also, Watershed 1 is a fairly small watershed, and so at least 10-meter resolution, which is what this setup is going to all focus on. And so the simulation won't run too fast, but it will click along pretty well, which you get into all those details during the Velma setup side. And the videos themselves are going to be listed based off the bullets. I'm really hoping, trying to stick with that as best I can. And so this video here we're watching is video 1, which is just going to cover parts A and B. But later on in the following videos, you'll see that there'll be like video 2A and then video 2B. So trying to break this down, step-by-step process of how you would set up the spatial data and the temporal data for Velma, and then how you would then work those into a Velma simulation so that you can then model your watershed. Besides a little intro here and this, I wanted to talk about folder structure. So actually I'm going to put that here. I don't know why my bulletin is not cooperating here. There we go. So folder structure. In Velma, when you're setting everything up, you have a fully qualified path, meaning directory, folders, subfolders, file extension. And so some setups in the past we would have where everything would just be lumped together in a single folder, but that can prove problematic. And so here, hopefully this is, well, actually I could enlarge it. Let's see, let's go with the, let's do it. No, if you, there we go. Hopefully that's a little bit better for people. So there's a whole bunch of different folders in here, and actually the setup I'm going to be doing is for a paper, and so that's one of my other purposes here. And so what I have so far, I normally keep everything small, but I want you to be able to see it, is I have this WS01, Watershed 1. And very typical for me, the way I like to set this up is underbar GIS for the data that, my intermediate data or my raw data that I'm using to prep for Velma, versus then data inputs is inputs to the model. And then there's typically at this level also a couple more folders, outputs. And then I like to keep the XMLs or the Velma setups. They're saved in a XML folder structure. I like to keep them separate, and then this is really nice doing it this way, and the purpose is that it keeps it all consolidated for you, but if you want to share your setup with someone else, then the data inputs in XML, even just a single XML, not even the whole folder of XMLs, that just needs to be shared with someone else. And then you don't have to send them the gigs and gigs of original raw data, a bunch of zip data, and you don't have to send them a whole bunch of outputs as you like testing and calibrating the model. You would just send them the inputs to run the model and the best XML setup you have. So, and then in here, this is going to become more involved as we go, but so far I just have m_1_dem, and in here I have a few files that we'll talk about in the next videos. Here, preparing the terrain, and so we'll get to this here soon, but let me just show you another setup so you see where this is going. So here is a larger H.J. Andrews setup of the full system, and you'll see there's a lot of different things in here. So again, m_1_dem. Paul Pettis and I came up with this system where the intent was m is mandatory, and then the number keeps it so you can then sort, keep it straight, underbar followed by what it is. I say the m thing gets a little weird. So what Velma needs for a uniform default watershed setup is the terrain driver data, air precipitation and air temperature in Celsius and millimeters, and you need to have age, biomass, or coverage. You need to have one of these, but what you can actually do in Velma is have a species coverage, like just this is all dug first. You have a map of all ones, and then in the parameter set you can assign that to be a certain age and a certain biomass. So these three, it gets it's great to have an age map and a biomass map, but really you have to have a coverage map, and then you can then create a uniform setups of these based off your coverage. Soils, again, you can have a uniform soils map, but you do need one. You need to have a soils map. And then observed data isn't mandatory. You don't need any observed data to run Velma, but to be able to validate your model run, you need observed data. And then we won't get into any of these O or optional ones. These are all even more advanced features that future videos will get into. But yeah, so that's just a basic folder structure, and you'll see here as well an outputs folder and XML folder, a bunch of different XMLs, so which we'll all get into that soon. The only other thing I want to mention in this video is that the data source for everything I'm doing. So H.J. Andrews Experimental Forest, their website, andrewsforest.oregonstate.edu, and here under data I went to spatial data, and in here the first thing that I cared about was the area of interest, and so I went here, and then I've been here before, so I already kind of knew where to go. I use this website quite a bit, and I believe I downloaded the H.J. Andrew boundary file. Pretty sure that's the one that I ended up landing on, and then that provided me then the boundary for H.J. Andrews, not the individual catchments. There's a separate layer somewhere in here for that, but rather just the overall area, which we'll see here in a second. The other data source I wanted to point people to was, let's go back to the original. Well, I normally do this. I do USDA Data Gateway. Oh, actually, this isn't the... let's do that one more time. USDA Data Gateway. So this site here, Geospatial Data Gateway, get data. Click on the green button there, and you can select it in different ways by state, place, if you have define lat long, or you just want to use the interactive map. Different ways depending on what you're trying to get at. Going quickly through here, not trying to teach people how to use it, just want people to be aware of this, though it is pretty intuitive. What's great about this website is that they have a bunch of different data, a lot of environmental data, and other things like geographic names. There's some census data in here, government units, so if you need like a county shapefile. But what they have that's specific for Velma is hydrology. Can be very useful. So you can get their hydrology, national hydrology data set. You can get boundary files for HUCs. Maybe you want to run like a HUC 12 or HUC 10, HUC 8 Velma setup, so you have a specific watershed HUC level that you're interested in. There's also other things like national land cover data, cropland data, soils data. So all these things are very useful for generating basic up to even more advanced Velma setups. So you select what you want and then go through the ordering process, and then they email you a link that then, once it's prepped and ready, that you download the data. And so that's what I did here for my data sources. Maybe I'll just put a little bullet here to remember to add those, or at least HJA. And so in my folder structure setup, this wasn't the one, this is a different one. There we go. Under my GIS data, I have the elevation data, and then also, so here's the elevation data, and then also, I guess it's in here, then it's already been processed down. Somewhere I have that boundary file that I thought would be right in here. I'll have to put it in here. So, and we're going to look at those next. So again, just a little intro video series to see how this is going to go. Again, this is a live document, so every video this will change a little, but really hoping I can stick pretty hard with the numbering system so that the video series makes sense. So the next videos we're going to have is preparing the terrain with the data I was just referring to. I'll put in here USDA Data Gateway. And so far, I don't know why the numbering scheme is not. It's funny, I will do that and then it will honor it, but it just won't auto-populate it to begin with. So far we have elevation data, and then from here, now I don't even know what to put in there. There we go. And then here we have the boundary file, or boundary layer. So we're going to play with these two next to prep the terrain. And also with this, I should mention quickly, I'm going to be showing everything in QGIS. I do use ArcPro as well. A lot of people use ArcPro, but I like demonstrating here in QGIS because there's a few really nice features that QGIS has regarding just their general structure and what they show you that is really, really helpful for Velma. Makes things a little bit quicker. And also, Velma is a publicly available model that people can learn how to run on their own, free of charge. And QGIS is a tool that is free of charge, and so you could use to prep data. The only major drawback I see with QGIS currently, and mentioning that I'm using, let's see, what is this, 3.16 Hanover version. The versions overall seem to be pretty consistent over the last few years over their general overall layout. But one thing is working with ISRI file geodatabases in QGIS can be a little hit and miss, especially on the raster end. Vector data within a geodatabase works pretty well, but the raster data can be kind of a pain to work with if you can get it to work at all. So that's the one drawback, just FYI, that I've ran into. So, well, great. Well, thanks for watching the intro video, and the next video will be 2-A, prepare the terrain. Thanks.